everyone, Sophie here, and today we're going to be finishing off our avocados. So I'm going to be showing you how to make the back of your avocado, how to sew those pieces together, and then also how to add that keyring on at the end. So one extra thing you're going to need that I forgot to tell you about before is some stuffing. So any stuffing will do. I got this stuffing from Hobbycraft and then I've just put it in a jar for safekeeping. Now going to need your dark green yarn. So as I said, I'm using my Catania dark green, and I put a note to the colour code for that in the description. So like when we started our avocado stone, we're going to start this with a magic ring. So I'm going to loop this around my fingers like so, and then insert my hook, pull through a loop, and then secure that loop by pulling through a chain of yarn. We're then going to work 6 double crochets into the centre of this ring. So in the US that would be single crochet, and then again we can pull on that tail end just to close up our ring. So there we go. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to grow this. And to start with, we're going to make it as if it's a flat circle. So for anyone who's familiar with this kind of crocheting, we're going to do 2 double crochets into each of these stitches. Then each round we're going to increase the number of crochet stitches by 6. So by the number of crochet stitches we have at the very beginning. So this will make more sense as we go through. And so we'll start with 2 double crochets into each of these 6 stitches to give us a total of 12. It's always a little fiddly with that first double crochet. There we go. It does get your fingers a little bit, this, particularly because the hook is so thin and pointy. There we go. So 2 double crochets into each of these stitches all the way around, making sure that in the end you have 12. So then that finishes the second round, and like before, I'm going to add in a stitch marker just so I know where I'm going. And so for the next round, we're going to do 2 double crochets in that first stitch and then 1 double crochet in the next stitch. And we're just going to repeat that all the way around, going over all of those pairs that we've just made in round 2. So 2 double crochets, so a double crochet increase into this stitch here, and then a double crochet into the next stitch. And so you should see that your increases always align with the first stitch of the previous increase. It's just another way just to keep track of where you are and make sure that all your stitches are where they should be. So you're going to do that all the way around, and in the end you're going to have 18 stitches in total. So if you want to go ahead, you can pause the video and I'll meet you back once you've done that. So I've come to those last pair of stitches from round 2. So I'm just going to do my double crochet increase into that first one, and then 1 double crochet on its own into the next. So that finishes round 3. Then round 4, we're going to do 2 double crochets into this first stitch, and then 2 individual double crochets across the next 2 stitches. And again, we'll repeat that all the way around, a total of 6 times, and that will then total 24 stitches. So as I said before, always increasing the number of stitches by 6. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video and repeat those double crochet increases and then 2 individual double crochets all the way around, and I'll show you what you're going to do once you've done that. So now I've finished round 4. We're going to start this round with 2 double crochets into our first stitch. And then we're going to do 3 double crochets across the next 3 stitches. And we'll do that 6 times in total, so that'll give you 30 stitches in this particular round. So like before, if you want to just go ahead, pause the video, and then do those repeats, and then I'll meet you back at the start of the round and I'll show you what we're going to do next. So we've just finished round 5, and now we're going to do round 6, where we're going to do double crochet increase, followed by 4 individual double crochets. And then once again, that will increase the number of stitches by 6, so we'll end up with 36. So again, if you want to go ahead, repeat that all the way around, and then I'll show you what we're going to do for the next round. That finishes round 6, and we've got one more of these all the way around to do. So starting with a double crochet in that first stitch, so 2 double crochets, and then we're going to do 5 individual double crochets, and we're going to do that repeat 6 times, and that will leave us with 42 stitches at the end. So like before, go ahead, pause the video, and then I'll meet you once you've done that. So having finished round 7, your back of your avocado should look something like this. Now what we're going to do is basically identical to what we did when we made the top of our avocado on the front. So we're going to start off with 13 individual double crochets, and again you can use a stitch marker, just mark that last stitch just in case you lose count, so you have a reference. So we're going to do those 13 individual double crochets. And so like before as well, we work this now in rows rather than rounds. So we've worked our 13 double crochets, and then we're going to slip stitch to that 14th stitch. We can then turn our work, bring our yarn so that it's at the back, and then we're going to slip stitch, not into that first stitch, but into that second stitch, and then slip stitch again into the next stitch. Then we're going to do a double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, then a half treble crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. Then 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And then finishing this row with 2 slip stitches into the next 2 stitches. Then we turn, get our yarn over to the back, and then again we start not in the first stitch but the next stitch, and we do a slip stitch, then a second slip stitch into the next stitch, then a double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, then 3 half treble crochets across the next 3 stitches, then 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and then that brings us to the slip stitches that we've made previously. So again, a little bit fiddly. You want to get your hook underneath the top loops for those previous stitches, and we're slip stitching into those again. So 1 in there, you might have to give it a wiggle, like that, and 2. Then turn, yarn to the back, and again start in the next stitch. starting with a slip stitch, then another slip stitch into your next stitch. Then you've got a double crochet increase, so 2 double crochets into this stitch. Then 2 half treble crochets across the next 2 stitches, so 1 per stitch. Then 2 double crochets into this stitch. And then finishing off with 1 slip stitch and then a second slip stitch to this one here. Return again. And again, starting in the second stitch, make a slip stitch, then slip stitch to the next stitch, then double crochet, 2 double crochets into each of the next 3 stitches. So you'll double crochet increase across these 3. So you'll have a total of 6 double crochets on this row. And then we finish the row with a slip stitch, that next stitch, then another slip stitch. And then before, when we made the green, the front of the avocado, we would then slip stitch to the next stitch and then tie off. We're not going to tie off this time, and instead we're going to do double crochet twice all the way around. So we're going to work into this stitch here, so again a bit of wiggling, and we're going to pull through and make a double crochet. I'm then going to take my stitch marker. Now this is quite important because it will be quite hard to see where you've made this first stitch, so I would strongly suggest popping in that stitch marker at the base of that double crochet we just made, and so you know where you've started the round. And then we're going to work all the way around here, all the way around the sides of this avocado back, evenly working double crochets all the way along. So you'll end up in the end of 47, 46, depending on your placement. It's not super crucial if it's 47 or 46, it's just you want to roughly match that of your front. But also, since you don't actually have stitches here, like we don't really have obvious stitches, you can play around with it a bit and fudge it a bit to maybe add in a couple extra if you need to. So I tend to try and get 3 double crochets in this section here. Then this is easy because this is just 1 double crochet in each of these stitches all the way around. And then again, when I get to here, I try to do 3 double crochets, and then here it's 1 per stitch once more. So first I'll try and put 1 in here. So it takes a bit of wiggling. So there's 1 double crochet, then 1 in here, and then 1 more in this stitch here. Then it's just a case of 1 double crochet for each of these stitches all the way around. So you're just working 1 per stitch, and this is just how we curve up the backs of our avocado. So if you just want to go ahead and keep working those double crochets all the way around, and meet me back once you've reached this second corner section here, and I'll show you how to tackle that. So now I've reached that second side, so here. So I'm going to work my first stitch into this one here. And then I'm going to work underneath both these loops in this section here. And then again into this stitch here. And this is fiddly, and it does take a bit of wiggling with your hook. And then 1 more into this bit here. And then we're just going to continue doing 1 stitch into the top of each of these, until we get back to where we started. And some of these are slip stitches, so they are a bit tight, but do just persevere. So 1 double crochet into each of those. And then the final double crochet of this round we're going to do into this one here. And then that brings us back to our first stitch that we've marked with that stitch marker. So we're going to repeat this again, now working into all of those stitches we've just made. So 1 double crochet per stitch all the way around until you get back to this point here. So go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what you're going to do next. Don't cut your yarn when you're finished. So I'm just working those last few stitches now, just coming back to where we started. And we can see where we started from this stitch marker here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work a slip stitch into that first stitch of this round. And then I'm going to tie off. But I want to make sure I have quite a long length of yarn. So I'm going to pull through a loop. And then I'm going to take quite a lot of my dark green yarn, and we're going to use this when it comes to sewing both our front and our back pieces together. And then we're just going to pull that long strand through and pull tight on that. We can also then take out our stitch marker, we don't need that anymore. And also, so I'm going to pull that strand, I'm actually going to just pull this strand here through to the other side before I start sealing anything up. I can give it a tug, make sure it's nice and secure. And now we're ready to sew the front piece onto our back piece of the avocado. So you want to lay them like this, so you've got this front piece roughly centered on the back piece. And then you're going to insert your hook into this stitch here of the light green. And then we're going to pull through, so inserting underneath that knot we've just made to close. And we're going to pull through a loop of yarn. We're then going to chain 1, and then we're going to move across into this light green stitch here. This is fiddly again because you're going under the slip stitches, so it does take a bit of wiggling. So we'll go under there, and then under this one here, and then we're going to pull through and then pull through both of those loops. So we're doing our double crochet stitches again, but now to seal these two pieces together. And we're going to do this all the way around. So into that next stitch there, into the stitch behind, always trying to go underneath both loops of those stitches. And then when you come to these top ones, we're going to change slightly from the 2 loops, and we're just going to go through 1 loop of the light green, and then we'll go through both loops of the dark green. So you only want to go through the loop of light green that's furthest away from you. And we're going to do that for the next 5 or so stitches. So 1 loop of light green, and then 2 loops of the dark green. And then again. And once more to that one there. So you should have done that 5 times in total. So it will just cover the top of your avocado's head. And then we're going to go back and continue doing underneath both loops of the light green and both loops of the dark green, and that will be the case all the way till the end. So double crochet, and now we come to this section here, so it starts to get a bit more fiddly. And when you come to the corners, you want to have 3 stitches joining. Now you can choose where you think it looks best for you to place those double crochet stitches. I tend to do 1 here, so 1 in this section. Then I'll do 1 in this section here. And then a last one underneath this section here. I then don't work any stitch into here, and instead I start in this stitch here and I work into the back. And then this becomes relatively easy then, because it's just obvious stitch to stitch placement. So we're just going to do this double crochet stitching all the way around, just sealing up your avocado. And try not to miss any stitches as we go. So if you want to go ahead and then pause when you get to around here, and I'll show you how we're going to stuff the avocado and then how we're going to just finish it off. So now you should have worked most of your way around your avocado, and you should have a little gap just about there, and we're going to stuff the avocado and then we're going to seal them up. So like most of the parts of this avocado, you don't need lots of stuffing. I tend to, before putting it in, just break it up, tease it apart with your fingers, just to make it a bit softer and to actually distribute it a bit better within your avocado. And then it's just a case, you can just use your finger, or you can poke it in with the end of your crochet hook. All you need to make sure really is that you've got some in this head and enough to just make sure the stone stays popped out. Once your avocado is all stuffed, you then just need to seal up those last few stitches. So we're just going to carry on working underneath both loops. And it should just bring us to the corner section. So I'm going to work a stitch in here. And then I'm going to work my last 2 underneath these 2 stitches here. Then all that's left is just to slip stitch underneath that first chain that we made at the very beginning, and then pull through with your length of yarn. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add on the keyring to the top, and we're also just going to pull in these sides as well. So you can see the head of this one is a little more squished in, so we're just going to do that as well. So we're going to need our darning needle. So these are just normal needles, just with a really large eye on them for yarn. And we're going to start by pulling in the sides of our avocado. So we want to get this knot so that it's not so visible. So I'm just going to poke that through that gap there. Just give that a pull. And then I'm going to insert my hook into the avocado. And what you want to do is you want to pull in across this line here. So I'm just going to come through one of the sides there. And I'm just going to pull that through. And then I'm going to go into this next stitch here. And then I want to come out in the opposite stitch. So you can see, push that through. And you don't want to pull this too tightly, just enough to start giving it a little bit of shape. Then we're going to go in that stitch there, and we're going to come out in the first one that we made, and we're just going to loop this round a few times. And again, just gently pulling, not pulling too tightly. Just do that a couple of times. And then on that last one, I'm just going to pop that so it comes out the base there. And then I'm just going to tie that to the tail that we started our avocado back with. Then I'm going to take the longer strand, thread that onto my needle, and I'm going to bring that up to the top of the avocado. So I want that to be roughly centered on his head, so around there. Pull that out, and then also you've pulled that knot now inside the avocado, so it's nice and hidden. And then we're going to add on our keyring. So I'm just going to loop that through, and I'm going to go through this stitch here. So just the one right next door to where I went. In with the avocado, and then I'm just going to loop that through a few times. So just in, like that, just to make sure I've securely attached that keyring. Just like so. And then I'm going to go in again, and I'm going to bring that down to here, and I'm going to do one more knot with my previous yarn. So I've knotted those together, and then it's just a case. So this one's quite short, so I'm just going to poke the needle through there, attaching that tail, and I'm just going to pull that through, and then I can trim off that end that's just poking out there. And then I'm going to do the same for this tail as well. So just threading that through, like so, and then just trim off that end that's poking out. And then there you have your finished avocado. So if you do make one of these yourselves, I'd love to see what they look like. So do share them with me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Ravelry. And if you want to see more videos like this one, then please subscribe and like this video. And so until next time, happy crocheting, and I'll see you very soon.